and welcome to Pardon the Interruption English Class Edition. I'm Katrina, and this is my co-host Cam.
Hi. Rules of the show. We have 5 questions, and we have a minute and a half to answer each of them. All the questions will be asked based on the books that we read over the course of the year. And after the questions period, we will move into 2 different styled segments.
So our first question is there a shared central theme in any of these books? If so, in which books? And how do they differ? So I noticed a central theme of America in 3 books. The Thing Around Your Neck, Persepolis, and The Reluctant Fundamentalist. I think that Changes, after 9/11, becomes very annoyed with America, and so that's his opinion on America. And then The Thing Around Your Neck, in one of the stories, she has a stereotype of America of being everyone's rich with guns. And then in Persepolis, there's some Western influence. So that's how I think they're all connected in a way.
I agree. I think America is definitely a main point, especially in The Thing Around Your Neck. We see it up here in a lot of stories, and we see a lot of the characters find out that America is not really what it's cracked up to be. And in terms of central theme, I think feminism is what I noticed kind of throughout the books, and especially in The Thing Around Your Neck and Persepolis. And especially in The Thing Around Your Neck, I see a lot of feminist messages between, especially when in terms of the story, The Private Experience, where it's kind of the 2 women are kind of connecting while the men are out on the streets fighting. And then in Persepolis, when Mara Jane tells the security or the police or whatever to stop staring at her ass, that kind of thing. So I definitely see feminism as important.
So that's an interesting point that you brought up. And in one of the books we read a little while ago, Unaccustomed Earth, with Hema and Kaushik, there's this idea that Hema has to leave her job for Kaushik. So there's this idea of feminism in a way that, her job is fine to leave, but his job isn't.
Yeah, and that the woman has to make the sacrifices. Yeah. Here's another interesting question. Which character do you empathize with the most, and why?
So I think a character from The Arrival. In The Arrival, we didn't know we didn't know the character's name, and we didn't really know anything about him, but we knew that he was going to a new place where he didn't know anyone, he didn't know the language, and I think that's something that a lot of people could empathize with, because we've all been in situations where we felt uncomfortable and we didn't know anyone.
Yeah, exactly, and we've all, just what you said. For me, it was Gregor, because I've never really been in a position where I've been completely ostracized by the people around me, I guess. And just the fact that he was tasked with being the breadwinner of the family, and then he just kind of turned into a bug, and everybody kind of turned on him, or his entire family turned on him, and he, especially for him, he was kind of miserable in his own skin. He was literally counting down the days until he had enough money to quit his job, and he was making sacrifices for the family. He was trying to put his sister through expensive music school. So I really feel bad for him, because the people that depend on him started to hate him.
Yeah, and after all he did for them, they never.
Yeah, exactly. They took it for granted.
Yeah. To expand off your question, is there one event from a book that you would change, and what would the new outcome be?
If I could change one event from any book this year, I would definitely change how the woman reacted when Edward said her story was not authentically African. I think instead of walking away, I would have liked her to put the man in her place, put Edward in his place, because I remember she stood up, she responded, but she didn't really go after him, and I really would have liked to see an entire argument be hashed out, and I really would have liked to see how that played out.
Yeah,
what about you?
I definitely agree with you. So I just talked about Unaccustomed Earth, and I would want Kaushik and Hema, I'd want them to be together, but I would want Kaushik to go with Hema instead of him since she didn't go with him and he just leaving. I would have wanted them to be together, and I did not like how he died at the end, so I would have liked them to be together, but in her way.
This is one of my favorite questions. Which book did you feel the least connected to and wondered why it was in the curriculum, and which book did you feel the most connected to and invested in?
So for me, I was really invested in Persepolis. I felt like since she was a teenager for parts of the book, so it was easy to connect with her, and so she was close in our age, so I felt connected to that, and also the way it was written in the graphic novel, I feel it's easy to connect, and you don't really get bored, because I always want to see what she was going to say next, and her life was pretty interesting, so that's why I was connected to that. And then I was least connected to the metamorphosis. because I didn't like the characters, and so if you don't really like the characters, it's kind of hard for you to connect with it.
Yeah, exactly. I like Persepolis as well because I feel the reason I like Persepolis and felt connected to it because I really liked Marjane.
Yeah.
Because she was just kind of like a fun, lively character, and she's not really someone I could like connect with, but I really enjoyed like her life. And then for me, it was the Odyssey. I feel the fact that it was written in the 8th century kind of puts distance away from the other books almost, and just kind of doesn't really connect them like with each other. And then by the end of the book, I didn't really like Odysseus, and so like the reason I liked Marjane is because the reason I liked Persepolis because I liked Marjane, and the reason I didn't like the Odyssey is because I didn't really like Odysseus.
And it's hard to also connect with Odysseus because we haven't experienced a lot of stuff he's experienced. So for our last question, we gotta read an independent book. And so does your independent reading book relate to any of the in-class stories? Why and how?
So for me, this is an easy one to answer. Outside of school, I read 1984 by George Orwell. And 1984 is about a man who lives in a dystopian continental superstate, and where the government is just constantly watching the people, and he more or less has a miserable life. And I think it's very comparable to Marjane in her life, and in some ways about how the Iranian, like the police, and they're kind of controlling her, and they want to make sure everyone in society is in line. And because I feel Winston Smith and Marjane are very similar. Winston Smith is basically like an older version of her because he's in his 30s or 40s, and he's kind of plotting throughout the entire book. He's kind of plotting like a rebellion.
So for me, I read Angela's Ashes, and it's a biography by Frank McCourt about his family living in Brooklyn and then in Ireland, and they're very poor. So mostly, no, I don't think it connected that much with any of the books we've read, but there's one short story from The Thing Around Your Neck, American Embassy, when the woman loses her child and her reaction to losing her child. In my book, the mom lost her child too, and they have this similar reaction. So they relate on the way they react.
All right, now we are moving on to our two other sections. And so our first one is future predictions for the characters after the book ends. So we're going to start off with Odysseus. What do you think happens to Odysseus?
Well, I think there's going to be a happy ending. I think he's going to live happily with Penelope and his son Telemachus. I think he's done with all of his adventures, and I think he'll just have a normal life.
Well, I think it's the opposite. I say he kills himself. Like, to me, just like throughout the entire book, he seems like the type of person who does stuff just kind of to do stuff, and I think he needs to do something at all times, or else he's gonna go crazy, and I think he's gonna go crazy. So what about with Hema? Do you think that she stays in her arranged marriage, or do you think that she gets divorced and lives a life on her own?
I think she stays in her arranged marriage. I think she definitely will not be happy because she loved Kaushik, and I think she'll just stay in her arranged marriage because I don't know, I feel like she feels inclined to, because she did cheat on the guy with Kaushik, so I feel like she feels like she has to stay in her arranged marriage.
I think there's no way she stays in it at all because just because I think Kaushik definitely wasn't the first person that she cheated on him with. I think it talks about in the book she cheated on him with a professor. So I think she gets out of it, and she kind of moves on.
So what about Chang'es?
Chang'es, I think he stays in Pakistan, and he becomes some sort of like political leader in his community. I think he's definitely a smart enough guy, and he's definitely outspoken enough to kind of be like a political leader, and he doesn't really like America. So I think there's kind of two connections there.
Well, I think he'll definitely stay in Pakistan, agree with you, and he'll be mad at America. But I don't know, maybe he's a spy, so that's my future prediction, because the book doesn't tell you when it ends. But I think that would make sense.
Now we're moving on to report cards. So this is where we give each character, or we give a couple characters grades for how they acted in certain situations.
So our first one is when Kaushik asks Hema to go to China. So I give him an F because he never thought about, well, maybe I go with her, so he gets F for that. But Hema gets an A for going her own way and not just staying because he asked her to stay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Kaushik put Hema in a bad position, and this is why I give Hema an A, because she knows that she has responsibilities that she has to take care of back home, and that she can't stop her life and follow around her star-crossed lover Kaushik. And Odysseus' return to Ithaca. How do you feel about that?
Well, so I give him a C. While his idea of disguising himself is a pretty good idea, he still comes and he causes chaos, he kills people. So there could have been a more peaceful way to arrive, but it's Odysseus, so knowing him, that's what he's going to do. But I give him a C.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think a C is where to put it, because he has the right idea of kind of returning, and he knows the suitors will come after him just because he's Odysseus and they're kind of searching for Penelope. But I think he could have done it in more of a noble way. And he could have been more loyal to his friends, and he probably could have done it without as much bloodshed as well.
Yeah.
And so, what about Gregor? What grade do you give to Gregor's family after his metamorphosis takes place?
They get an F because they totally abandoned him. And if he turned into a bug, so I know they're not going to be 100% understanding, but he supported for them he supported them, and now they totally abandoned him. So I think they get an F.
Yeah, I agree with you. I touched on this earlier, and Gregor really got handed the short end of the stick here, just because he made all the money for his family, and then they kind of abandoned him. And so I also give the family an F, just because they weren't understanding at all, and they just didn't take it well.
Yeah.
All right, that's our show. Thank you
for watching.